Welcome to the AI Lyceum. We have an amazing guest today. His name is Claudio Pinhanez, who is a scientist, professor, a manager of research and innovation groups, and the principal research scientist of IBM Research in Brazil. He is an award-winning research scientist who has developed a lot of amazing research. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Claudio.
So thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm a computer scientist with some work in design, some work in art, a lot of interdisciplinary work in my almost 40 years of career. My work has always been in the intersection of AI and human-centered design and HCI. So it's always been about how people interact with machines they believe are smart in some ways. In the beginning, I was doing a lot of work with computer vision, which was like this in the 90s because that was the hottest technology at that point in AI. And the last 10 years, I've been working with natural language processing. I think that this is where the hit is right now in terms of AI. And for the last 5 years, I've been working with processing of indigenous languages in Brazil, besides other stuff. And but I have a very interesting career, a very multidisciplinary career. I have always worked with very complex groups of people of different backgrounds, and I think this is part of what my work reflects.
That's really interesting. And you've been working on AI before it became really popular in the last 3 years. So did it surprise you when it became very popular when the GPT model came out?
Well, I started working in AI when it was very popular and was going to take over the world. And this was in the 1980s. Okay. For people who have not lived the 80s, there was almost as much hype around AI because of expert systems as it is now. I don't think there was as much money in terms of investment because the whole structure of venture capital was still starting. But believe me, I mean, there were meetings and magazine covers and how we are going to regulate AI because AGI is coming in the next 5 years. This is not new, okay? And I think it's related to the fact that it's so easy to misunderstand AI in the sense that we always see a machine doing something that when we see a machine doing something that looks like human, something that humans do, we tend to associate with a machine all the range of things that humans do. And that's a fundamental mistake, and that's what creates these waves of hype and deception and like the winters and summers of AI. Okay, I think this wave starts. In fact, I now have to talk about IBM, which is my company, but I think it really starts with in 2011 when IBM did the Jeopardy work, when an IBM machine was able to win the Jeopardy contest against champions. I think that was the beginning of this hype, and it was mostly around companies and a smaller group, but there was already a lot of hype until, I mean, 2017 when the Transformer paper came out. But I understand when OpenAI put ChatGPT out and people could try it out by themselves in a very good, nice interface and very persuasive and very addictive interface, in fact, then the whole stuff blew out. Okay, I think so. But this wave, in my view, starts around 2011 or so when we really start to see processing of text in a level that was hard to imagine. In the beginning of this century.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that the user interface is what's changing the way that we interact with the computers now. Demis Hassabis on a podcast with Lex Friedman I watched yesterday said it's the user interface. Well, I think it might be Lex Friedman who said it. The user interface is what's defining how we adopt this sort of technology. Because without the user interface, it makes it difficult for people to interact. Imagine it was a Jupyter notebook with the large language model in the background, and you had to import the package, etc., and code it yourself. There'd be a lot less. There'll be a lot more barriers to entry for people, but because it's so widespread and it's got user interface, it makes it very easy for anybody across the world, from children to adults, to use it. So I know that you're a big expert in human-computer interaction. So were you surprised that that's the way that it was adopted and the way that it was created as a scalable proposition?
I'm still surprised by how people find uses for, ChatGPT, Gemini, all this, Gemini's chatbots, and how people are using and how people are interacting with them. But I think, I really think it's one of the greatest interface what OpenAI did, and also the way they publicize. It's in many ways similar to what Google did when they really got their interface right in terms of search. Okay, I think for some people like me who went through all that process of the beginning of the internet, we had at a point other search interface like Alta Vista, like Yahoo. You would go to Google, you would never use the other ones again. There was the results are better, but the interface was so brilliant in the way that it allowed you to see how many options there were. How it also showed so well how the algorithm was not sure about that, which I think was good, and something that's in fact missing in the current bot interface. They are very bad in portraying uncertainty, and the uncertainty is there. These machines make mistakes all the time, but they are hiding uncertainty. Their uncertainty. Okay.
Interesting.
In Google, it shows just the fact that they list 20 websites. A good traditional Google search shows it doesn't know the results. It doesn't need to show anything. It shows that, okay, you do the rest, right? We are not sure what you're looking for. But it's the opposite. That's why I think they are a little dangerous in that sense. They portray too much uncertainty, too much certainty, the current interface.
I find it interesting because in a traditional Google search, when you search for something, let's say I search for this black t-shirt, it returns websites that have programmed with certain schema in the back end to return that particular black t-shirt from the site into the search engine results page. Now, if I say I want to have a new t-shirt, it needs to be black, it will go and find it for me. So it's giving AI agency, right? It's allowing it to do something for me. It's allowing it to reduce that behavior I used to do online by searching on different sites and bringing back the information. It's doing that for me. So it's saving me a lot of time. And we've gone from obviously retrieval based to generative. So there's an interpretation, right, in the way that it retrieves information for you.
I think it would be great if those algorithms were good at retrieving information, but they are not. Okay, we just published a paper in Archive where we showed that if you ask these models 10 times the same question, 1/3 of the times they are not consistent. They produce many different answers, contradictory answers, exactly the same question. I did also a quick experiment with ChatGPT. That's what day is today? Okay, simple question. It has to go to an agent because it has to call. 5 in 10 were incorrect. Okay, and that shows me, oh, you're being certain. You have an interface that's very assertive and should not be. It should be much more. It should communicate much more the fact that there could be a mistake there. It's not saying putting small letters in the background. It's like portraying, saying, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe I don't know. I think that's one of the things that worries me, is that people are getting used to work in the systems with an assumption that they are right. And that they are often not right, not only because of hallucinations, but because of inconsistency, because of outdated data, also because of sometimes there's no true answer. I mean, there's different there are different ways to look at the same thing. And so if I had to say one thing, is let's tone down. Let's tone down the systems.
The model's really interesting because they're quite new in terms of how we've never seen this sort of technology before, and it's growing really, really quickly. And I find them really enjoyable to use, but also, as you say, quite addictive. And I ask these models a lot for lots of different types of questions. Have you seen the recent information from OpenAI on their adoption report on how people use their models? It's quite interesting on the human behavior aspects of it.
I'm not sure I've seen this one. I've seen, and at the same time, I have to say one thing. I have a hard time trusting companies who have something to gain from us believing what their reports say. Okay, I prefer to have independent work in some situations, so I would be a little careful. I mean, in reading any report from the companies in this, and I'm not saying that they're doing that on purpose, just that it's very hard to believe people who have conflict of interests to do valid research and valid reporting. Okay, so
yep.
So having said that, we are seeing lots of use. One of the problems we have is it's very hard to do research with independent research with opaque models. Okay, and those are opaque models. When you have open source models, you can do, in fact, actual research and then understand what's happening. But for instance, I'm a reviewer of many conferences. If someone says, "Oh, I did this research by calling, I don't know, 300,000 times ChatGPT," I say, "How can I replicate your experiment?"
If you were in charge of developing a better design or a better way of making large language models that allow us to interact in a better way, how would you design it?
I have, in fact, a little paper about this, and I think there is one principle: honesty. You have to design an interface which portrays what's behind in a very honest way to the user. It portrays its uncertainty in an easy to understand way. It doesn't try to impersonate a person, to pretend it's a person. It tries to be as machine-like as possible, because it is a machine. For instance, in this paper, I advocate that this machine cannot use the word "I." In fact, I advocate we should define a new way to say "I" for a machine, like maybe with a Y or something like that. So we immediately understand we are talking to a machine, and we don't ascribe human values, human capacities, human abilities to them. Okay, that will be my guiding principle. Make it clear to the user you're talking about something that make mistakes, is not sure, and it's not human in any way, in anything close to be a human being. Okay, and from that point on, then we can say, okay, how we can get useful stuff from this. Okay, and I want to be sure I'm not here to say we should not use these machines. I think we should. They are wonderful machines. We should understand what they are good at, and we should be very clear to the users what they are not good at. because they are not good at a lot of stuff. Okay, they are very problematic to use in many contexts, or at least in the way the technology is right now. So let's be very clear. That's from the interface. Let's design an interface that reflects that from the very, very beginning.
Which interface are you most excited about at the moment, and what do you see the future being? Let's say by 2040, what sort of tools do you think we'll be using?
I'm a graduate from the MIT Media Lab, and one thing we learned there, I did my PhD there in the 90s. Very exciting place to be. And one we learned that it's extremely hard to predict the future. It's very, very hard. If I remember what we were saying back there about the internet, about how people would use and how wrong we were. Okay. So when you think about, well, okay, 15 years from now, okay, let's go back 15 years. Okay, 2010, right? 15 years ago. Nobody would say would be having this kind of a conversation in 2025 with computers in 2010. Nobody would say would have this level of text and image processing. It's just mind-boggling what happened. So given that, okay, so let's assume, okay, maybe we should be a little less ambitious, okay, than that, and ask ourselves, what kind of new ways of doing things that this technology will create? And more important in many ways, what kind of platforms I need to deliver these new technologies? And again, I go back to end of 90s. I mean, we had all the hype of internet going. I mean, it was as big as today, believe me. Okay, in 1999. This is when I graduated. I was looking for a great time to look for a job. I mean, everyone is looking for PhDs from MIT, from creative areas, and we could not imagine how things were going to be used because we didn't have smartphones. We could not understand that technology needed a new platform, which in the end became the smartphone, where things would be delivered for the people wherever they were. So it was very funny to be that time because people are talking about e-commerce and all stuff, and it was so hard to pay anything in internet because the payment platform was not there, not in an easy way. So I think we are right now in the same. We have a wonderful technology. Everyone is excited, but there are platforms that need to be built to enable this technology to excel and do what they do best. And it's very hard to imagine how we are going to be using 10 years because we are still thinking right now under the limitations of the non-existence of these delivery platforms, of this new the new structures that may happen. Okay, I think the experience of seeing the internet starting and the whole process of maturing that I went through, and I mean, I was sort of at the center. The MIT Media Lab was the center of the innovation of an internet, in the sense of where CEOs were learning that thing. Okay, it was an incredibly exciting place to be. And we saw how difficult, even so, with a lot of brilliant people, a lot of people from the best, it's still very hard to understand where things are going. We saw glimpses, but say that people are going to go around where, I mean, with this kind of, gadget that has, anything from localization, camera, sound, processing, voice, no. You cannot. And the implications of that. The fact, for instance, with this, you can transform a driver into a taxi driver. this plus GPS, and a platform to connect to customers. Okay, nobody saw Uber at that point, or any of those companies from this. Okay, nobody. It was very hard because not all the platforms were there. So that's what I think where we are. It's exciting, but the future is not what we are seeing now. We are seeing the past transmodified into future. The old problem of science fiction. It just reflects the present and the past with robots, with machines, with intelligence, but still not seeing the future. Okay, that's, I think, where we are. We are going to go through a process of maturing the next, I would say, 5 years. And we are going to look back in 2030 and say, these guys are crazy to 2025. They had no idea what they had on their heads. That's what I see. And then in 2040, who knows what's there? And I don't think it's electrical. Whatever happens in 2040, 2050, I think it's biological, not electrical. The exciting technologies.
Wow. So when you say it's not electrical, it's biological, what do you mean exactly?
Okay, now we are going to serious speculative futurism. Okay, I think with all this help, including from AI, we are going to have a much better understand how to build stuff with biological systems. How I can grow my chair with the help of a genome of a tree. This kind of stuff. How can I manipulate biological matter to create things that we want, that are useful, new materials, new structures? I mean, of course, in medicine. But I think the if I had to bet something, okay, if I had to bet, it's the coolest technology of the 21st century will be biological and not AI. That's my bet. And I try even to push my son to be in that direction, but I'm not being successful.
You're pushing your son to be what, sorry?
to go into this biological area, because I think it's more promising for his future, but I'm not being successful. Okay, I think he's going to do design, which is cool, which is going to be it.
So I was watching iRobot yesterday, and it's an amazing film because I see the future, maybe 2050, having robots like that.
I think if we don't escape the trap of iron and metal bots, and start to move to more interesting materials and like biological materials, that thing's not going forward. I have a friend who has robot systems. She said, we should not be afraid of robots taking over the world, because we just only have to resist 20 minutes. After that, all the batteries are going to go down and you're okay. So I think this technology is so clumsy. It's so, I would say, nonsensical. We know what good matter for movement is. Nature found it through billions of years. You have just to learn how to create things like this hand with biological matter and how to control it. And I think that will be possible in 10, 20, 30 years. That's going to be change. That's going to be a huge change. I'm not talking about cloning. I'm talking about manufacturing biological system. Okay, just to be clear. Okay, and but anyway, this was way out there, and probably a little way out of my own area of expertise. Maybe you should go back to AI.
Yeah, really interesting points. So what tools do you currently use, and what do you use them for at the moment?
I have two main lines of work right now. One is the one that I carry with my group in IBM Research, is looking into I would call non-functional requirements of large language models. Things like consistency, things like fragility, So right now we are trying very hard to understand how to break those systems and how those systems break, because unless we understand that, they cannot be used in a lot of practical situations. If a LLM cannot say 10 times the same answer to the same question, it cannot be using any legal stuff, it cannot be using any customer related scenario, okay? Or anything more critical, okay? It cannot be used for automation, let's put it this way, okay? I think the fundamental problem we have now with this technology, with transformer-based technology, is that it's not locally consistent. It's not locally continuous. What I mean by that? We expecting language that similar questions that are rephrased, but are expected to ask the same thing, that similar questions go to the same answer, go to similar answers. This is what I call locally continuous. Okay, there is a neighborhood around a prompt of similar things that should go to the correct answer in similar ways, and that's not true for these systems. If it was true, prompt engineering would not work. Okay, in prompt engineering, you change a little the prompt, but you're still in the same neighborhood, and you get drastic new results. Okay, so prompt engineering is a bug, and we have to eliminate that bug from the systems if you want them used. I'm not sure it's possible, and that's the biggest question, I think. That's where we should be putting all the focus of our thousands of papers, saying, how can we make the systems locally consistent? Or can we make them? I'm not sure even it's possible. Maybe it's I think there is something basically wrong in the way we generate, it's in discrete ways, the text. Okay, this is very non-deterministic. It's very prompt, and non-determinism at this level is dangerous. It's very so a lot of so there is this line of research where we're trying to understand a little more why, if you put two extra spaces in a question, which should lead to exactly the same answer, and then it breaks down. Then it starts to say improper things to give you information. There's all those techniques of jailbreaking, which basically stem from the fact that they are not locally consistent, locally continuous in this sense. Okay, and that's similar for us when we look at asking the same question. So this is one line of research which I think it's critical, and there's less people there than we should have, and a lot less theory than we should have. I wish we had money to take all the part of this 5% of these brilliant minds which are on this conversation, work on theory of these things, understand how a transformer works. And the industry is not doing that, and this can be very dangerous in the long run, because we need to understand much deeper how those things work. We don't know. Okay, this one thing. This is way out there. Okay, you have a question? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, number one, how do transformer models work for the purpose of the audience? And also, if you can improve the transformer neural networks or recommend research to undertake, what would you recommend and why?
I think a lot of what we are seeing in some, for instance, for the consistency problem, it seems to be related to the fact that the traditional transformers are stepping machines. They generate one token, let's put it, one word at a time. They have you take this big question, the prompt, you feed to the system, and it generates the next token, which is a piece of a word, let's put it this way. In fact, it doesn't generate that. It generates the probability that a list of the most probable tokens with probabilities associated with that, and it does a random drawing in this probability, which is controlled by what we call temperature. And that's the temperature basically is the hotter it is, the more likely you try something different. So it's a stepping machine. So it's always branching. And in traditional computer science terms, it's combinatorial. So it's combinatorial. It's a discrete system in the end. It's not the neuron. It's not the traditional view. It's a discrete system because it generates one token, then takes the prompt plus what has generated the next, and so on. So it's taking branches in this world, and that's not surprising. It's not non-deterministic. That is not consistent. Okay, so this is one thing to attack. This has proven to be very easy to implement, but seems to be an obvious failure, obvious problem of the architecture. Okay, I'm not sure I'm being too complex, but think this way: it's not it generates the whole answer in one shot. It generates it piece by piece, and decisions it makes in the beginning affect the end. So it's not surprising it has hallucinations, it's not consistent, and so on. That's how to fix that. Hey, if I could do that, I would ask for the $1 billion that someone is offering for brilliant computer science to join their company, someone in a known company, because that's the big question. If you could fix that. If you could fix that, would be impressive. But a lot of people have been trying, and believe me, we see that by the numbers of papers that are flooding AI conferences, okay, doubling every year. A lot of people are trying to fix this stuff. So maybe it's not fixable. Okay, when people try too hard and they cannot fix it, could be also that someone has fixed it, but there's so much noise in this area that paper or that idea got lost in some corner of the internet.
Do you think that AI could fix itself? Do you think not fix itself? So do you think it can keep improving itself?
I'm not sure. It could find it by chance. Okay, but I'm a little skeptical about this. I think this is a deeper issue which may require a lot of brilliant minds working together with the help of AI systems, with a lot of, I think this is a work comparable to when people in the 67th understood how complexity works in algorithm, with people like Dijkstra, people like I forgot the creator of LaTeX. I mean, people who really look at at that point, people are fighting for who has the fastest algorithm. They said, no, let's build on a mathematical foundation. And they found fundamental things about algorithms and how they could, and how fast they could be, and the fundamental problems. I think we need something at that level for understanding this technology. Something that removes all the clutter, all the special machines, all the special hardware, and say fundamentally it cannot do this or cannot go beyond this, and so on. Okay, and I hope someone has not found this and it's buried into the 4,000 papers of NeoRIPs every day and nobody looks at it. Okay, but at some point you need theory to fix stuff. There's no way out. We know that.
What I find really interesting is that we're using maths to define language. And usually someone either really, really loves maths or really, really loves English. I've never met somebody who likes both at one point in time. But it seems like we're using mathematics to define language, which is really interesting.
I'm not sure. I think we pretend to use probabilities to explain neural networks, this machine. I found that it doesn't capture what's happening there. I mean, a lot of people are finding that, I mean, you go back to neural networks, something very fundamental. We still don't know how they work. We still have how they find, how they actually behave. Okay, there are people working on that. Because in many ways they are not these probabilistic machines that we use. In my view, we have the wrong math for them. We have not developed the right math to really go deep into neural networks. That's my feeling. Okay, we approximate with the math of the probabilities, and it's good enough. But at that scale, probabilities stop working in any reliable way, and we see that because those systems behave in ways that, I mean, are within the range, but it's not how it's supposed to be, and there are a lot of evidence around it. Having said that, we don't know how language works inside our brains. That's one of the biggest mysteries still. The other day I was rereading the classic book of Marvin Minsky, The Society of Minds, from the 90s, the 80s, in fact, which I still think is the best portrait of how language can emerge, language and thought can emerge from senseless machines. Okay, and but still, I think the problem is we don't know how language emerges in us. So so I'm not sure if math is the wrong paradigm, because I mean, we know that it emerged from organic matter, arranged in some ways with some sensors and with some time to. We know that because we are the living proof that organic matter can use language. Okay, if it's absolutely necessary. Well, anyway, I don't think it's necessarily a contradiction, but I think the problem is we still are far away to have the right math theories to talk about this, in my view. Okay.
Are you surprised at how fast this technology is being adopted and impacts in the world?
I was surprised by what happened in the period like 2015, 2020, 2022. I think now it's lower than I expected, especially given the amount of work, the amount of the number of brilliant minds working on it. For me, it signals we are getting to a plateau in what this technology can do and cannot. Okay. I think people are over optimistic about impact, about how much this can actually do. Okay. I think a lot of people talking about AI impact have very naive views of the limitations of this technology. I think when you talk to people who actually know and work with this technology, I think people are more conservative, way more conservative than people in the market and people in governments, than people in think tanks. Okay, I think this is transformative but in ways that we are not understanding yet. I think it's, in my view, it's closer to what happened in the 90s with the adoption of personal computers than what happened with the internet. Because I think it is technology to augment people in the way that personal computers did, and word processors, all this stuff did, than a technology that automates things. Okay, but it's hard to say. Again, I think we are in this process where you have to clear out all this hype and really see what emerge and what the platforms emerge that actually use those systems in really powerful ways, in really transformative ways. which may be less. I mean, maybe more gradual, but that's good. We don't have to change the wording in 1 year. It's good when you don't have to change the wording in 1 year. It gives us time to do it right. Okay, I think we have to see this way.
Yeah, and I think because it's such a new technology, it's such early days, right? There are going to be
Yeah.
failures. There are going to be ways that you improve it, and it's only going to get more and more mature and way better in the next 5-10 years. So it's a really exciting time. But as you said, we have to keep an eye on the ethical foundations of it and being safe and responsible. And there are some guidelines from the EU in the high level expert group. There are 7 principles there, which people can read in the EU AI Act, which is quite interesting, including transparency, accountability, human oversight, human agency.
Mhm.
How important do you think keeping a human in the loop is? And in which decisions do you think people should use a human in the loop versus leaving it as automated? Because I know that you said, unless it's right 10 times out of 10, don't automate it. But for a lot of businesses, it might not be as feasible to do that at the moment because they're trying to scale.
Well, first we have to be careful not to regulate a technology before we understand it. Okay, I think I'm not saying we should not have regulation. What I'm saying is we should understand it's risky. That there are risks involved with this technology, and if a company uses that technology, it has to be responsible for harm and damage that technology can cause. I mean, this has to be the first given. Okay, this technology is not perfect. You know that it can that it can hallucinate. It can produce multiple answers. So be careful in what you put it. And if you put it in the wrong place, prepare to pay for the damage. Okay, so there is a high risk involved in using new technologies, always. And we always should say you should. Same time, we have to be careful to say, we know the risks of this new technology. And often we don't, first because I don't think we arrive at the right use, and second, we still don't know how people will use this in wrong ways or damaging ways. If you look at the beginning of the social networks, 2005, 2006, all the regulation that people were concerned at that point was, you should be able to join one of these networks anonymously. That was what we are talking in 2007. Finally, we have a platform where we can have a different life than ourselves. And today we are saying the opposite. You have to identify yourself, because we learned that thing can cause fake news, can create scams and stuff like that. So we have to always be careful about regulating technology in the beginning, in my view. But that doesn't. But the way to trade off and say this thing is dangerous, you are responsible. If you put up there, you should be prepared to help people you harm. Okay, that's my view. It's not my company's view. It's my personal view on this. As I said, if you see, there is a big theme in what I'm saying. Like, hey, this is the beginning. We are not even in the middle of them. We are not. We don't. It's a marvelous technology. We don't understand it. It's risky. We don't understand how to use it. We don't understand when not to use it. So let's be careful. Let's be careful. Let's be careful with our predictions, because it's exciting. I've lived in exciting times before in my life. Thank God. It's great to be in the middle of this really exciting movement, but it's very hard to look at the future of this disruptive movement and understand what's coming. It changes very fast, and it changes perceptions and needs, and even creates new issues very fast. So we have to be humble. Be humble when we are predicting the future. That's what I learned in 40 years of AI. Okay, especially AI has this characteristic that people often associate a technology that does something with a lot of other stuff that it doesn't do, or it doesn't do well because we associate it with our own capacities. And this is a fundamental AI problem, and problem of the field, which we have seen over and over. And so let's be humble. That's my main advice at this point.
I think it's good life advice in general to always be humble.
Yeah.
So being humble is not a bad thing at all. I've got a last question for you. This question is for the audience. So for those listening, what would you want to ask them to add into the comments and answer on a specific topic around this?
Let me, given what was said, do you think this technology should be used for any important decision in your life? Okay, and I mean, putting this question in the context of effect of a post I just did today on people using these bots to find arguments in conflicts with their spouse. Okay, there's an interesting article about people who, before having an argument with the spouse, go to one of this system and say, help me finding reasons why my spouse is wrong. Okay, this is life decision, and this is causing like divorce and stuff like that. So, but I think that comes on. Do you think you should use this for life decisions, given all that was said? I think that's one of the things that we can get people that, in my view, they should not. We are a good first step of control and regulation. But people may disagree, and I would love to listen to their experiences on this. I talked to a friend the other day. She said that she had such great arguments with her spouse that her spouse thought she was using one of these bots to generate the arguments. Okay, so it's out there. It's getting part of things that I don't think they should. Okay, they're not good advisors. They're not good friends. You're not designed to be, in my view. But people may disagree. Okay, I'd love to hear if people have used to argue with their kids or with their bosses, and what the results are of doing that.
I think it's a great question. Let's see what you think in the comments. It'd be great to hear different viewpoints and be as expressive as you want to, and then we can give Claudio some good research. All right, well, that's the end of the episode. I want to say thank you for your time, thank you for your knowledge, and thanks to the audience for listening as well, and we look forward to hearing your comments on the question.
Thank you. Great. Had a great time here.